it is healthy to have others, one spouse or supportive partner can help, family, but particularly people who understand what it's like as well, like other founders, because it's a very lonely road. And I mean, you're taking on risk. You will indemnify other people if things blow up, right? It's going to come back to you. So that's a lot of burden, a lot of weight to bear.
Yeah.
And you can do it alone. Like you got to have that support network.
Welcome to Foundations, a podcast where I chat with creative and tech founders as they build amazing companies. My goal here is to find out the stories, the wins, the losses, and the reason why they started the whole thing. I'm Johan from Tension Studio, and I hope you enjoy. Let's begin. Today, I'm excited to welcome Anebi, founder and investor of Icon Labs, on the show. And that's how we kind of, first knew each other or talked to each other during that time. But now, to be clear, you've been following your journey. You've actually been up to something a little different recently. You've purchased a business, I believe, and given yourself the title of Chief Joy Officer at Shipman Cleaning Company. So safe to say, eternally entrepreneurial. But we'll have to dive into with a question. So, Anebi, please share a bit about yourself, a story about yourself as a founder, and I suppose where you are right now with that.
Yeah. So being a founder, I would say, found me, no pun intended. Both parents super entrepreneurial, and over the years just grew up in that environment. And I'm an immigrant to the United States. I moved out here about 11 years or so ago, and I've worked a variety of jobs, but all through I've always had some side hustle going. I've done like resume edits, I've done career coaching, I've built courses for nonprofits, I've done operational stuff for nonprofits, consulting, and all through it's just that itch to be a founder, to build things, to build teams, and just add value. And that has been the key driver. It's like, how can I add value? And it's fun to get paid for something you build. So it gets quite addictive. Ended up starting an agency some years ago, ran that for a while. It was a Webflow agency. We're doing a variety of things, but when I found Webflow, I felt it was a very special platform because we could do the drag and drop design thing, but also code, right? Extend it with some JavaScript, some pixie dust.
Exactly. Some magic.
To make magic, happen. So did that for a while, burned out a few times, took on a job again, and ended up selling that agency and focused more on service businesses, what I call Main Street businesses. So the boring stuff, cleaning, plumbing, laundromats, stuff like that. I ended up buying a cleaning company, and that's what I'm doing right now. So I work day job. I work for Arizona, building digital solutions for them. I'm not here in that capacity, but that's my day job right now. And then on the side, the other side hustle I have right now is the cleaning company, and working on operations and growth. Because I'm owner / chief revenue officer right now. Would be my official title, but I do everything behind the scenes. And then I have a team that I'm working with who run the day-to-day operations.
Awesome. I mean, honestly, I've seen people talk about, buying boring businesses and being able to, I guess, insert tech, which I think you kind of mentioned before we chatted here, is being to kind of tidy up the operations in the back end and kind of leverage what maybe we know from a tech side of things into maybe like the kind of Main Street businesses. Can you tell me a bit more about that? What have you been able to do?
Yeah, absolutely. And there is a lot of opportunity, I think, when you have a tech background, or I at least look at the world that way, in service businesses, particularly in mine. It's been around for 12, going on 13 years, like the company itself. I acquired it from the previous owner last year, August of last year. And in the first few months, we were working on operational fixes, from a perspective of software and scheduling and workflows, because there were some kinks that we had to iron out, like the software. They're using a cheaper tier of it, which didn't give them a bunch of features. So I upgraded to the max just so we could leverage more things. Looking through the data, the CRM, because there were a lot of contacts in there that were stale or expired. Like people move, buy new houses, go elsewhere. So while we had thousands of contacts, not all of them were good.
Relevant.
Like we
Yeah,
couldn't reach
yeah.
them. So that was another thing, to do that clean. So things like that website, new website, and simplifying the user experience on the website to schedule and self-service schedule, right? To go book a job versus
Yeah,
having to
yeah.
call us all the time. Adding FAQs, working on search engine optimization to make us be found in more places has been huge.
Yeah, yeah.
More than ever, we're having people finding us from Google searches, right, and going on the website to book. So that's been another thing we've done. But the list goes on and on. But when I talk about operational optimization, especially with the focus on tech, those are some things that right away come to mind.
Yeah, yeah. And how much of that experience from building Icon Labs as a web development agency to kind of the service business were you able to kind of transfer over? Because yeah, obviously lead generation is huge for both, right? How much of that was transferable? How much of that is new from a kind of more of a service business?
I think a lot of it has transferred, but the key change is adjusting my expectations. So for agency, it's a little different. It's similar, but for a service business that has different cycles. So it's cyclical, demand and supply, different times of the year. And I bet that's different depending on what part of the world or country in the US, but part of the world you live in. So that's been something where it's totally different. I'm learning and trying to figure out those. There's some months that are slower, there's some months that are way faster. So how do we look at those things? And that's another opportunity for leveraging technology, particularly AI or machine learning, to look at historical. I want to look at my database to the beginning of time, right? From when we started collecting those records, probably goes back 6 years or so, and look at those patterns and also be able to predict a little bit more based on historical patterns. Maybe there's some other variables based on weather and stuff we can add in there to look at what months are we most likely to have more demand and what months are we most likely to have less demand. That'll help inform my field services. I hire contractors, 1099s, and also full-time staff. So that gives me, what's
you
that
can
ratio?
scale up or down as you need.
Right on. So that's one area that right away technology can help us optimize things. But to answer your question, it's very transferable, my skills from the agency, but I'm having to essentially figure out new ways to apply that skill set.
Yeah. Would you say you're still in kind of like a learning phase? I think you probably would have a certain amount of assumptions coming in and say, hey, tech will save this business, but then obviously there's learnings along the way. So how do you juggle that kind of optimism with where ideas meet, crash into reality? Like how do you balance the two?
Yeah, I mean, you've seen the graphics, right? Where it's like when you work in, you focus, you step away, you go for a walk, and then it's like I think one is like the dripping faucet, right? For ideas. And then there's a bigger one, which is like it's flowing, and then there's a whole river of ideas when you go for a walk. And I've had to do things like that just to look at the problem from different perspectives. My wife is really helpful she's very pragmatic and has a very unique way of looking at things that I'm like, oh, wow, I never thought about that. Matter of factly, she says, I'm like, I didn't think about that. So being able to bounce ideas off others, I think has been helpful. I went for a walk today, for example, around my neighborhood, and I got some new ideas to apply. But I think the word for me is pragmatic optimism, not losing the optimism, looking forward and having hope. But it has to be based on reality or small experiments to test it out. Has been super helpful because I tend to be optimistic generally. And I was like, oh, I'm going to fix a bunch of things from a tech perspective, run ads, fix the website, fix customer experience, and we're going to blow up, right? In a good way. But the reality is it's a lot harder to do those things. So I think, pragmatic optimism has been the word that I've been leaning into lately.
It makes sense. But I think you need the optimism to start, because sometimes you need a bit of unhealthy optimism to be able to go, you know what, I'm going to take a risk. Well, maybe it's a pragmatic risk, but like to make that leap has to be some sort of optimism, right? And then when the rubber hits the road, you go, okay, let's be pragmatic in certain part of the operations.
Yeah. And it's the reality of beginner's luck of not knowing what you don't know.
Yeah,
And because you don't know what you don't know, you didn't know what the limitations were. So you just
exactly.
charged in on these things. So there's definitely a certain degree of that going on as well.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing you were saying about going for a walk being a game changer, like and also I also sort of dump ideas on my wife on the walk as well. So I don't know whether it's like a pattern with founders and and having healthy marriages or unhealthy, who knows? But like I think
Yeah.
being able to bounce ideas during a walk, during a conversation,
Huge.
is huge. Is huge. So yeah, I mean, kudos to the wives out there and the husbands who are sort of helping out. So really appreciate, because yeah, sometimes it can be quite lonely. You know, you
Oh,
might feel like
yeah.
you're shouldering the burden yourself, but obviously there are people out there going through similar journeys too, right? Not just
Yeah.
partners, but also other founders.
Yeah. That's a good segue. I think the support network, even if they're not doing exactly the same thing in your industry, agency, or whatever it is you're doing, I think, yeah, it is healthy to have others, one spouse or supportive
Mm.
partner can help, family, but particularly people who understand what it's like as well, like other founders, because it's a
Mm.
very lonely road. And I mean, you're taking on risk and you will indemnify other people,
Mm.
who, if things blow up, right, it's going to come back to you. So that's a lot of burden, a lot of weight to bear.
Yeah.
And you can do it alone. Like you got to have that support network. And for me, that has been really helpful. Like I stopped at a buddy's company some days ago and we just talked for an hour about business challenges, like even stuff like different industry, different kind of business, but like we're in the trenches, right? Building
Yeah.
these things together. And
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
helpful to know you're not alone. And there are others like you who are
Yeah.
also making mistakes, by the way, as they go along.
You got to share the mistakes, right?
Yeah.
That's
Got to
fair. That's
share it.
fair. And like, okay, jumping back into Shipman. So, Chief Joy Officer, there's got to be some, what do you, how do you think about creating memorable experiences or joyful experiences for your customers?
Yeah, I mean, I love that question a lot. Like, I had an epiphany one day when the customer reached out and they were raving about our service. Obviously, I have technicians who go do majority of our cleans, and they were just so amazed at new life given to their carpet and upholstery, and the joy was palpable. It's like, you
Mm-hmm.
know what? This is what we're about. For now, we do cleaning, but we're actually not a cleaning company. Cleaning is just something we happen to do right
Okay.
now. Right. We're in the business of helping people find joy in their space again.
Nice.
And so that's where that came about from. How can we, help people find joy and enjoy their space when it's clean, it's pristine, right? You're like, I want to be
Yeah.
here. But also through the process, as we do the work, how can we do it with finesse and also with a smile on our face, joy? So just connecting all of those things, I'm like, that's what I'm about. I want my employees and contractors and team members, right? A lot of my colleagues to do their work. One, for it to be a workplace that they enjoy and they look
Yeah.
forward to coming to and to bring their best selves, joy, but also for the customer interaction, so customers can see that those interactions are positive. But also, I want the customers to find joy, right, in the service you provide and what they're able to do with their space as a result of that. So I'm like, it's
Mm.
joy all around, Chief Joy
Yeah,
Officer.
man.
So I'm gonna roll with that title. Yeah,
No, I like it. It's interesting, yeah, because when you talk about joy, yeah, you're saying not only for customers, but yeah, you're also 100% correct with staff. I think it's two-sided. You can't be joyful to your customers without
exactly.
having the essence inside the company to be treating your staff with the same kind of experience.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
wouldn't be perfect, but I think it's a North Star worth shooting
yeah.
towards.
Nice. All right. AI is a buzzword, and you mentioned it already. So kind of reticent to always jump into that conversation, but like obviously it's a technology that's going to change a lot. Outside of kind of like reading trends, how do you maybe sort of see the space being, maybe the technology with service businesses? Do you have other plans outside of that kind of in the works?
I mean, like you said, it's a buzzword, and the joke is AI is in everything now,
Mm.
right? Everyone's wrapping their stuff, and the AI
Yeah.
wrapper is all powered by ChatGPT and some of the
Exactly.
big LLMs. But I think there are a lot of practical use cases. So part of the advantage of coming from a tech background is I can sort of like dogfoot it internally with this company. This is a use case rich place, right? Or solving problems. I'm already, one of the things I'm looking at, like I was saying, is using AI to predict, to look at patterns, look at historical stuff, and then help us look at patterns and then plan accordingly. But the opportunities to build very specific tools around that for different industries, my industry being one of them. If someone wants to steal that idea, go for it. Save me the time and the trouble to build that. But so there is that, being able to leverage AI for things like that. I've also been using AI tools like a coach for specific areas of the business, customer success or
Okay.
billing or things like that. So back and forth, right? You feed
Yeah,
in a lot
yeah.
of info up front, and then you can go back and forth and think from different perspectives, like a thought partner. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there to deploy AI at scale that people will actually pay for and leverage, because time is precious. You
Yeah.
can save me 30 minutes or an hour per employee multiplied by multiple hours a day times work days. Like
Yeah.
that is
That's
huge.
huge. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I see a lot of usage there for productivity and just getting through
Yeah.
things faster and freeing people
Yeah.
up to actually do high value work.
Definitely. It's not always around the innovation, but yeah, like you said, it's almost like in that operational efficiency, right? Like doing the boring stuff, which I think is a huge part of what AI can do for customers and kind of internally for business.
Yeah, actually, for fun, want to, if I have the time,
Yeah.
do some math around that for how much we're saving in terms of tasks that would have taken a $45, for example, hour resource, a couple hours a week that is just gone. It's taken care of
Yeah.
right now. So that would be interesting to see, because I know for sure we're shaving off hours of work per week right now. It's based on that. If you think like creating invoices, quotes, and things like that. So I'd be curious. Do you
Yeah, yeah.
know? And then
It's
we have a
definitely worth it.
screen that tells us where
Yeah,
we're
yeah,
at.
yeah, exactly. It's currently saving. I think, and a lot of that is also down to good operations. You can't just go here, press AI button, fixes everything. A lot of that's, the operation has to be ready to take that in. But yeah,
Yeah.
definitely a huge way to kind of save costs there. Is there, okay, being serial entrepreneur, is there any kind of advice to new founders or founders kind of struggling in that kind of peaks and troughs of starting or continuing with something?
Ooh, where do I want to start? I've made so many. I mean, there have been times I've gone all in on things prematurely. Again, the optimism thing I was telling you
Yeah.
about. It's gonna work out. I'm just gonna do
Yeah,
X,
yeah.
Y, Z,
Just
and
trust this.
sure it's
Yeah,
gonna
yeah.
work. So I think there's a healthy degree of pragmatism to founders. I think founders may just, you just got to be more optimistic, or you won't, like you said, that certain things you
Yeah.
won't do. But I'm finding a middle ground, right? To be optimistic, but to find ways as much as I can to create guardrails around that, to de-risk it, right? Or being able, even if you go ill on something, to have a timeline. If X doesn't happen by this time, then that's my answer. That will save folks a lot of grief. I think Seth Godin wrote a book called The Dip. And sometimes you're in a cul-de-sac, that's not going to go anywhere. You're just going to be going around in circles. You got to be able to recognize when that time is so you can move on to something else. So I would say to founders, yeah, be optimistic, but have guardrails around that. So you're not just doing the endless loop of continue the same thing and hoping it works out. So you got to be able to have metrics around what does success look like, what things are indicators of success, so you can double down on those things, or if not, then toss it up. Success at that point is failing to complete the task by tossing it out. That is something that I think if I had kept an eye on more and leaned into years ago, it would have saved me some grief. with money wasted and resources and time wasted pursuing certain things that would never, maybe could have at some point, but that ended up not panning out because I was so in love with the solution I was going for.
Yeah. I mean, I think we're all guilty of that at one point or another, or still guilty of it right now. So, no, appreciate your time.
Of course.
Yeah, I think your story is super unique, and really interested to see where you take Shipman and any other kind of future ventures. Appreciate your time, Anebi. Where can we find out more about you and what you're up to?
I share a lot on LinkedIn. For some reason, I haven't really used a lot of other social media platforms. I have profiles, but they're alien to me. LinkedIn is my jam. So if anyone's on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, Anebi Agbo. I'm sure you tag it, but LinkedIn is the place. And then shipmancleaningco.com. For now, we're only local to the Phoenix, Arizona metro area. I hope to expand in future to other states in the US. For now, again, that's the immediate goal for growth. But for those listeners who are in the Phoenix, Arizona metro area, we service the entire valley. So hit us up.
There you go. Awesome. Appreciate your time, Anebi. Take care.
Thank you. Alrighty. Cheers.